So firstly, just to set some context, I thought I'd set some context with our landscape. What do we mean in terms of the why, the move to digitization, and some simple use cases to highlight, and hopefully in the end we have some time for taking any questions and answers. So in terms of our landscape, as an IT organization, for those of you that are not very familiar with Cisco, we build great products and solutions. We've also been in the industry acquiring a lot of technologies. We have a huge global presence. We've got 70,000 plus employees. We work with an ecosystem of a large number of channel partners, supply chain partners, and then we have very healthy financials in terms of the longevity of the company itself, in terms of why Cisco is your preferred technology and provider of choice. And then in terms of our own fundamental focus areas, obviously we are a networking company, made a lot of other businesses that are built on the network, like the Googles, the Facebooks, to be very successful. So again, we continue to innovate in our core in terms of our networks. We are very relevant in our service provider business. We've gone into the data center and analytics, very pervasive in terms of how we approach security, in terms of defending our customers, our employees, our partners, and then most recently with some of the acquisitions that we've done with Jasper and AppDynamics into the whole arena of connected devices, connected products, and how do we use applications and telemetry to solve a lot of our customers' pain points. And then as an IT practitioner, we've got, like I said, over 70,000 employees. The way we like to look at them is they all have technology choices and opinions, so we treat them all like CIOs. From a workforce standpoint, over 140,000, between our temporary workforce and employees. We've got a huge global presence. We've got more than a dozen data centers, both production IT data centers and engineering data centers across the globe. We support over 1,300 labs, huge amounts of big data in terms of both structured and unstructured. And again, being the first best Cisco customer, we deploy a lot of our own technology and provide a lot of the relevant feedback back into our product engineering organizations. And then in terms of our business landscape, so the way we like to segment things are, what are the applications, whether it's on-prem or cloud, to support our selling and buying experience, our fulfillment experience, our service delivery experience, and then also a lot of the assets that we get from acquisitions. And then at the bottom, what are the fundamental technology platforms to support data and analytics, knowledge management, content management, name it. So again, we've got a very complex and a diverse set of applications, both on-prem and cloud, that we manage and provide the needs of a lot of our constituents between sales and engineering and manufacturing and services, etc. Then in terms of our own journey, we've been on this journey for the last 7-8 years to drive towards a services organization and services taxonomy and mindset. How do we have IT service owners to think and act like a general manager? Obviously, we're not in the business of P&L, but really have a good line of sight in terms of the bill of IT, all your fixed costs, all your variable costs, what are your levers in terms of driving efficiencies, and the norm of every year driving down our OpEx 5 to 10 points is a given. So even in a down budget scenario, how do you try to save to invest by driving more efficiency and productivity, but moving those dollars in terms of the next gen set of investments that we need to make? And then obviously we want to be a key business enabler, have a seat at the table with regards to our key business strategies. And then as a rigor, we go through on a regular basis with our CIO, service reviews, architecture reviews, we look at the organizational health, and then constantly look at our investment planning, because the long drawn investment cycles, those models don't work where you try to plan for 12, 18, 24 months, right? You got to make some quick adjustments from a portfolio and investment planning standpoint. And then in terms of our organization and key stakeholders, right, we've got Kevin Bandy, who's our Chief Digital Officer. We've got Rebecca Jacoby, our Chief Operations Officer, and my boss, the CIO, Guillermo Diaz, who reports into Rebecca, who's the COO. But again, the triangulation in terms of our strategy between our CDO, our COO, and CIO is very critical. So I just wanted to set some context of who our key stakeholders are. So again, a lot of this is in terms of what Cisco IT or landscape is. And now I'll get into the move to digitization in itself, right? So obviously, when we look at digital, I'd like to look at it in terms of how do you really apply a lot of the technologies in terms of our new business models. How do we look at, obviously, with the consumerization and the overall shift in terms of the customer experience, how do you use a sustainable customer differentiation in terms of your product experience, how we serve our customers digitally in terms of we have smart products, how do we have visibility to telemetry, the quality of service, the SLAs and things of that nature. And then very important is how do we apply the constructs of pervasive security in our overall journey. So again, it's about applying the technology in terms of driving the disruptions in your business models and your customer experience with a pervasive security mindset. But at the same time, it's not just about technology, right? It's also about your strategy, it's about your thinking, it's about your approach in terms of the immediate business needs, and then how do you look at your business needs as you look at 12, 18, 24 months in terms of an outlook. And then if you really look at it, if you think of the business needs and the business outcomes, obviously if you look at the technology or the end-to-end stack, the way I'd like to describe it is, at the top you have applications, and applications are really the lifeblood of the business. But then when you talk about agility and when you talk about productivity and speed, by the way, within Cisco IT, we don't really believe in that bimodal IT. We believe in being just faster and being more secure. And as a result, how do we apply that mindset in terms of driving our business outcomes? So again, obviously we want to drive the application transformation and the shift away from our legacy investments to more cloud native, and how do we leverage technologies like containers. But at the same time, many a time, the speed of application delivery is hindered by how agile your infrastructure is. So again, if you go to the very bottom, we've gone through a journey and transformation of driving automation through back in 2008 when we did the unified fabric between LAN and SAN, and then our own investments within our unified compute systems, and then we moved towards more a programmable infrastructure and network with ACI, and then most recently, with our own data center analytics product like Titration, how do we better build security postures and how do we allow policy management more dynamically. So again, our goal here is in order to deliver applications at the speed of business, how do you provide an agile, flexible, nimble infrastructure and architecture, and then build upon the core IaaS in terms of PaaS automation, because many a time developers want access to web servers and database servers configured the way they'd like to consume it. And obviously with the big focus on data and insights, how do we as IT not get in the way of building dashboards and reports for many of our stakeholders, but really provide a self-serve and a sandbox where if you've trained a bunch of business professionals on, let's say, Tableau, with the click of one button within the catalog, with the right security and policies in place, you can allow your business constituents to run reports, ad hoc reports, and then use IT only where pretty complicated algorithms and statistical models need to be put in place. And then the next thing is around how do we drive towards a DevOps model, a continuous delivery model, and really make developers productive with the latest and greatest choices in terms of technology. But at the same time, I'll get to subsequently why culture is another key ingredient in order for us to be making the big leap in terms of digital transformation. So again, when we look at this stack, we look at it from top to bottom, from bottom to top, and how do you have a linkage with policy, and how do you embed analytics in the right steps of the workflow for you to be driving towards the right business outcomes. And then when we look at the shift in the drive to digitization, we really look at it in terms of 5 key digital principles, right? Everything that we look at, we look at it from the lens of simplification. How do we drive? Because at the same time, we don't want to automate a broken process. So again, strive for simplification, then drive for automation, apply and think about security more pervasively, and with the with the big shift in technology and the assets with analytics, how do you apply the right insights at the right points in the workflow, and then how do you continue to innovate across the board. So keeping these 5 digital principles in mind, I thought I'd walk you through some of our key examples and use cases of what Cisco IT has been doing in each of these areas. So number 1, in the area of simplification, it's a pretty busy chart. The example here is how do we, we've got a very healthy technical support renewals business, and as a result of which, over the many years that we've built these applications and systems, things have gotten pretty complicated for our sellers, for our ecosystem of channel partners, our service providers, etc. And again, it goes back to basics, right? So what we did was, many a time the complexity in the application is based on the business policies and how you modeled them and how you instrumented them. So again, reverse engineering the application and really, raising and bubbling up as IT practitioners, the visibility of all the key policies that are driving complexity and partnering with the business at the right levels, right? And many a time we think of escalation as a sign of weakness, but really to sit down with the leader of channels and sit down with the leader of sales and walk them through why these policies have been put in place. Are the policies, now that we've done 10 years and 12 years of business, still relevant with the shift in the industry and the market? So again, starting with a policy, translating your complex business rules in simple English, and then driving for change and striving for that was one of our key enablers as a part of this digital transformation. And then, back to basics of common data models, right? So again, over time, as your architecture has become complicated, how do you go back to the fundamentals of, if you want to drive attach rate, if you want to drive renewal rate, how do you go back to the definition of the customer, the definition of the installed site, your product, your assets, and things of that nature? So again, a combination of policy simplification, common metadata models, and common data definitions and taxonomy, and then providing a consistent, once you've got the SSOT, or the single source of truth, how do you provide that common lens to the sales organization, to the partner organization, to your management? Because at the end of the day, when you provide the right insights to management, that will drive change in terms of behaviors and actions that you want to strive for. So again, we've driven over the last 12, 18 months, a huge simplification in our renewals business in terms of policy simplification, in terms of embedding analytics and providing it at the hands of the key business decision makers. And as a result, we've seen some pretty good, healthy metrics already in place. So this is about simplification. And after we've squeezed a lot in terms of the simplification, now comes down to is how do we drive and strive for automation? And I have within the automation umbrella, a pretty cool demo that we're right now in the thick in our labs that we've been working with. But before I play the demo, the context I want to set for is many a time the sellers that we support, on a global basis. We've got more than 12,000 sellers between AMs and product sales specialists and systems engineers, etc. Is this notion of, rather than logging into multiple systems and to make them productive for the day in the life of a scenario for a seller, how do we help using natural language processing and voice recognition, the ability for them to be productive and get some jobs done? So why don't I just play the video and hopefully it has the right. So as you could see there, right, the sellers are interacting with the deal management systems, they're looking at trouble tickets, they're looking at when are the upcoming renewals, they want to find content. So again, this is something that is right now in our labs that we want to pretty soon take to production over the next 2 to 3 months, where it really makes both the conversational aspects of it and a lot of things that you are constantly going after more available at your fingertips in terms of engagement and your interaction with customers and things of that nature. So then, in terms of the pervasive security, which is our third key digital principle. So again, within our Cisco ecosystem, right, we've got a very sophisticated CISO organization. Again, it's not just the job of the CISO to drive security in terms of the posture and the assessments, but also more pervasively. And again, just for a day in the life of a scenario, before an attack, during and after, if you just look at the amount of telemetry and logs in terms of the email traffic that we look at, the web traffic that we look at, how much of deep inspection that we do in terms of our NetFlow data, if you really look at the overall landscape, right, the numbers in itself are quite daunting. And we've been able to really drive a lot of the incident resolution of greater than 95%, only because we've got the right telemetry, the right visibility, the right analytics, and a lot of it is also hinging on a lot of our own Cisco security product portfolio that we've used and brought to bear in terms of an integrated architecture of how we defend a lot of our assets, our customers, our partners, and our employees. So again, this is something that if folks are more interested in terms of a deep dive, happy to share that. But just to give you a lay of the land in terms of the visibility and analytics within our security portfolio that we drive. And then continuing on the theme of analytics, one of the other things, given product quality is top of mind for us, both in terms of component and hardware quality, at the same time as software quality, we've been embarking on a lot of machine learning algorithms and statistical models in terms of looking at our top software defects, a lot of our top hardware defects. What are the things that potentially, maybe many a time we've also looked at our returns that come in from customers, and how can we avoid a return by helping the attack agent troubleshoot and address the issues without hitting the return button, right? Many a time it's about closing that knowledge gap and resolving issues on the fly. So again, we've done some pretty good healthy models in terms of how we've avoided a lot of the returns and helped the customers troubleshoot and get back up in terms of being online for a lot of our UCS gear, for example, just as an example, right? Again, so this is bridging the data from our supply chain organization, our engineering organization, our services organization, and then building the right analytics in such a way that we are able to rapidly respond. And then when it comes to continuous innovation, and again, to build on Dan's presentation too, is obviously you got to act with this. It's not just about having Agile as a methodology, but how do you really look at your 2,500 plus IT professionals and your key business stakeholders and come with the culture and the sense of urgency and agility, right? It's more about being agile and bringing that agile mindset. So we've driven a lot of that in terms of the culture, still a long way to go in terms of the getting to the last mile. We've modernized a lot of our applications in terms of providing tools like Rally, Jenkins, a lot of our Git repositories. So again, a lot of training, a lot of investments in a lot of the software fundamentals of making developers productive. And like I showed you our infrastructure chart as well, we've automated a lot of the database provisioning, a lot of the web server provisioning. So again, our goal is to really, with very minimal clicks, whether it's CLI or through a portal, serve and provide the right environment for developers to be productive. And at the same time, how do you provide them labs and access to material where they're able to, our philosophy is not fail, learn from that, but it's more about how do you learn often and how do you apply those learnings on a continuum as you're solving and tackling some key business challenges and technology challenges. In some of our key mission critical workloads like e-commerce, where we do almost $48 billion annually, we have begun to modernize and apply a lot of the web scale components in terms of the technology and architecture with regards to cloud native principles. We've also invested in a lot of the non-traditional databases like Cassandra and Mongo, which are more in line and in tune with some of these kinds of workload characteristics. And at the same time, we've invested some of our own applications in terms of self-healing, self-learning, in terms of how we scale horizontally and scale vertically in terms of our key mission critical workloads. And at the same time, we've made some pretty good strides with regards to our investments in our Hadoop and a lot of our big data processing, so we can apply a lot of the insights as a part of the key workflow rather than it's another island of information that you need to look at and avoid that rare view looking model. So again, we're beginning to make some key strides in our quality, in our supply chain, and our e-commerce processes and systems. Now, one of the things, in addition to driving the agile methodology, now we do over 85% of our releases now in an agile methodology. We still have ERP for some of our waterfall releases, but one of the other things we embarked on is something called the continuous delivery analytics. And we've got a pretty big contingent workforce, whether it's in India or partners that we leverage to build a lot of our software. So we've built some pretty good analytics to look at the quality of software, the performance of developers. Many a time when you outsource and out-task a lot of your development, you want to have, you want the trust but the verify model. We found many a times developers that are in the system but they've not written any line of code in 3 months. So that, again, some of these analytics really help look at our fundamentals in terms of our processes, and at the same time we look at feature velocity, quality and things of that nature. And now with the security, pervasive security mindset, we've also injected as a part of our planning, developing and release processes the right pen tests within our application code base, a lot of the database checks. So we call them the application vulnerability test, the data vulnerability test, etc. So again, as a part of our continuous delivery mechanism, we've built a platform with the right APIs and with the right security postures enabled, and it also gives us visibility to, like I said, the health of, let's say, how TCS is performing in terms of a given portfolio footprint in delivering applications to Cisco. And then in terms of skills, given that we're all in a tight budgeting situation, you never get a lot of silver bullet hires that you can go in and hire from the outside, the best network engineer or the best Python programmer or data scientist. So obviously we have a few of those, but then how do you retool a lot of your organization in terms of the fundamentals and what skills are important, and how do you stress on those skills and then balance between education and exposure and applying those resources to the right, giving them the right challenges and giving them the right incentives in place and creating that lab-like environment to let them be successful. So we've gone pretty rampant in terms of how we've driven our agile methodology. What does it take to be a good product owner? How do you drive the overall safe training? We've done a lot of data science training. So again, we track as a part of our metrics on an ongoing basis, the certification levels, the specialization levels of a lot of our workforce. So again, this is work in process. You never get it perfect, but we take a lot of the learnings and apply it and strive for, strive on a continuum in terms of how we get better. And then, in terms of some of the lessons learned and some of the things that have worked, right? Obviously, when you have such a broad charter, right from the CDO, the COO, the CIO, how do you articulate and drive the engagement with your employees in terms of your vision, where are you headed, why is it important? It's not just about an agile methodology, but how do you respond and have a seat at the table, be a consultant with the business, understanding and responding to the business outcomes, right? Understanding the why and not just leading with the how. So again, a lot of that is taken into a part of our core culture. And again, how do you set up the incentives and the models to allow for learning, build things more iteratively, get some early feedback. In a large company like Cisco, many a time the developer or the analyst is far removed from the end user. So how do you really break down the silos and provide a lot of the feedback from an end user back into the guys who are writing lines of code? I think is important. We've also beefed up a lot of our investment planning with architecture-led investments, where again, we have a revolving door policy where we don't centralize too many of the architects. We kind of like decentralize, move them back to the function, and then centralize some that have been too long in a function back to a central role. So again, this constant change of perspective and learnings and newer experiences, I think, is critical to keep the architecture community and practice more evolving. And again, how do you drive the culture of innovation and risk and things of that nature, right? So again, a lot of this is what, within the IT organization that we are striving to drive and change for. And then, I'll end my presentation with, I like this particular quote from Jack Welch, which is, if the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of the change on the inside, then the end is imminent, right? So again, I think this is very important, especially as IT professionals, with so much of change in the technology and the choices that are available for a lot of your business stakeholders, really pondering to say, how would you evolve and how do you look at where the puck's going to be, and get your skills and get your leadership in line with what the business goals and outcomes are. So again, hopefully this was of benefit, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you all.